Here we are live at the 360 Vegas studios with this edition of School Police Talk. We have some great guests here. We have the chief who is back and he wants to enlighten us about a lot of different things. And sir, please tell us your name and what it is that you do for the Clark County School District. Please.
Yeah, I'm Lieutenant Steve Hewitt. Right now I'm one of our administrative lieutenants, and I supervise 3 of our administrative bureaus. That's our training bureau, our technical services bureau, and our diversion and wellness bureau for the department. And then I also, on top of that day-to-day supervision, I also lead our breach and rescue team, which heavily focuses on active assailant training and preparation and making sure that our officers are trained and prepared on current trends and our response to any active assailants in our schools and our whole valley.
Very impressive. You know what I mean? And you have a lot of responsibility, much more than most people who are just the chief of a school police department. You have tremendous outreach from tremendous people that work for you in all different capacities. So thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely.
You know, it really means a lot to me that, you know, you take the time because what we have to talk about is very important. You know, we have children and young adults who are doing things, and we want to ensure that they always are safe. And then when it comes to the social working aspect of what you do, it's tremendous. And so every week when we film, we get more and more involved. And every single person that comes here says that it's a directive from you. And so the leadership at the top has to be supportive of all these things. And it's fantastic what you do.
All right, well, thank you. Yeah, the social workers, I don't know if we talked about that last time, but I was working on an Indian reservation.
Yeah.
And I worked with social workers. Pretty much every single incident involved an aspect that could be assisted by a social worker being involved. So, you know, flash forward, I spent about 11 years there, and I get here, and I'm in a middle school, and I love it. And, you know, you're dealing with some of the problems, and it doesn't take long before you start meeting parents and talking to them and hearing their concerns about their kids and, you know, learning about the school, that's little school community, because they're all different. And just the impact of that little neighborhood on the life of a child and, you know, economic-wise, social-wise, things like that. And just problems would come up. And as officers, we're trained to, you know, handle the incident and move on, and don't really have the time to kind of delve into folks' lives and help them on that type of level. So, and as school police, we do that on a daily basis. You know, our whole, you know, officer on a campus is the basis is community policing. It is. That's what it is. That an officer who takes the time to talk to the kids, talk to the families, and work with staff and just sort out the problems. That's what they do every day. But we can always use some help. I remember there was a card that I think it was the DA that put it out every year about community services that were available. Oh. And it was a little card that every officer carried in their pocket. And when you met with a parent that had a problem about their child, they're just not listening to me, or they're doing this or that. How do I help? I became the interim at right when COVID hit, and spent 2 years as the interim, and then I became the chief. And we just decided at that point it would probably be a good idea to add some social workers. The trend at that time in school-based policing was to increase the number of supports you had for children and families, and there's a big push for social workers in our schools. So I said, well, what better idea would to have a social worker working right alongside of our officers? And I just think back to the times that I worked and how many cases or clients that the social workers would have had just on one site, because you're really involved with all the kids, and you know they just need some help. It was a poor neighborhood and all that, and just a lot of problems. So we added them on, and you know they're busy. It was the first time that I think a school district in the country had social workers working alongside them, and it was difficult. I think you met with Lori, one of our social workers, who came on and talked, and she probably talked about, just my directions. It's like, I know it works. I did it on the reservation. We can do it here. And a lot of folks need to have the whole plan written out. I just had a general idea, ensure they're safe, right? Separate the criminal work that we need to do as law enforcement officers, and then they can come in after, and provide supports and things like that. That was it. That was the basis of it. And knowing that we're going to develop it over time, and we did. And, thank God for her that she was able to, kind of build it from there. And we're going to be having 9 social workers now that are going to be working alongside of our officers this year. The cases grew from, I think, 100 and some the first year to 600, a little over 600 just this year alone. And we just had 3. We brought a 4th one on in November, and her first during her training, because it's unique. We developed an entire training program for them to expose them to the department, the culture of law enforcement, and how we work as police officers with students, staff, and their families. And during that time, we had UNLV shooting, we had the Jonathan Lewitt's death at Rancho High School, and we had the death of our officer on campus. So right then it was just her name's Celestina. I think she came and talked. She may have. But immediately exposed just some of the stuff that outside the normal client helping the family. There's other things, because we're a police department, and they actually responded to the UNLV shooting. Our 3 social workers, and they helped set up reunification for the students and staff that were leaving, that were evacuating, and helping them at the staging sites. Where the population that were on campus when the shooting happened were moved to, providing them support, getting them to where they needed to go, and things like that. So yeah, it's just been extremely helpful, just having them involved in our department and kind of what we do every single day. And it's been really positive. I've sent them throughout pretty much across the country to talk about the program. And we just recently had Albuquerque schools from one of those talks visit our department for 2 days, learn about the program, and take it back to their school district to mirror what we're doing here in Las Vegas. So that just happened last week. They were here and kind of just learning about how we started it, what we did, how we funded it, and kind of just the procedures behind it. Because it seems simple. Yeah. Just like I said in the beginning, just have a social worker come in behind. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind that.
I remember when she was here, because she said that, if there were the 3 social workers here, and she said that, her childhood wasn't the greatest. And so she directly linked that to the fact of that she wanted to help others. And that leads me to what you do, right? So, it's very important for everybody to be safe and know that, if there's a problem or something, that somebody's going to come and help us, because I've talked about it many times. I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? If there's an emergency, I'm running the opposite way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so others, it's completely different.
It is.
Right? And so when it comes to different parts of the Clark County School District Police, most people think that the Clark County School District Police, it's a couple guys, they drive around in a car, they go to a high school or they go to a middle school, they sit there, they make sure there's no fights, and if there's no fights, they drive home in their car and they go, okay, well that's my simple day. And so you do things that are preparedness to ensure that if something ever happened, which we hope nothing ever does, right? And so I always come back to the fact that if people know that that's the way you do things, they're less likely to want to do things. Right. So talk to us about what it is that you do when it comes to that training.
Neil, the point that you make is accurate, right? So oftentimes we do have just a couple officers in the parking lots waiting to see how the school day is going, or monitoring students as they exit or enter the building, right? That is a big part of our job, because that's we're being present. We're watching the students for their safety, keeping threats away from that campus. But the reality is, as they might just, maybe they are just, it appears they're just sitting in the parking lot. and on the back of their minds of all of our officers is the reality that somebody could be planning or preparing to enter that school to take lives. We see it across the nation every single year, multiple times. The active assailants, the active shooter is the common term that you may hear. We refer to them as active assailants because it doesn't only have to be firearms that we're addressing, right? They could have any weapon and taking lives on one of our campuses, or at least attempting to. So that's in the back of our officers' minds every single day, and it's heavy. It's heavy. So we prepare for that. Every single year, multiple times a year, we train with other agencies in active assailant response. We do have the MOU signed, just like other agencies do for MACTAC. And that basically, to sum it up, says that we promise that we will send resources to a major incident. 1 October being one of the major incidents that we dedicated resources to for multiple days. UNLV, we responded, so it doesn't have to be one of our schools. All agencies in town train together, and we're all prepared for active assailants. Specifically with our department, we make sure that we train inside of the schools and different layouts of schools every year, and we invite the other agencies to train with us. But that training is very important because it reminds officers of the importance of the initial response, that it needs to be rapid, it needs to be fast, it needs to be aggressive, it needs to take the attention of the suspect or suspects off of the children and onto us, while we go in there and either apprehend or take other action that might be necessary at the time. But we spend a whole day split up over 7 blocks of training over our summertime because there's less students on campus, so we take advantage of that time to make sure that we train heavily. And like I said, each block, 1 whole day is dedicated to active assailant response and preparing in the unfortunate event. Hopefully it never happens. But showing the instructors and showing the people that are responsible for verifying this training is done that you're willing and able and competent and reminded of the importance of that response inside of one of our schools in case someone does decide to make that leap and take lives of our children.
And we've seen it on the news, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, where in today's world, different from other times where, you know, everything we do has a video camera on us, right? And everything is a timed response, like exactly when the call came in, exactly how many seconds it took to get. And so when it comes to what you do and your training, you know, you have to be very diligent about it.
Yes.
And so in your position where you have others that are underneath you, there has to be the same level of diligency, because at the end of the day, you know, it could be someone's life that could be really in danger by a hostage situation or by, you know, just someone. And you know, I come to the fact that, like, when I watch the news, that when it comes to the football games or baseball games or hockey games or these games or whatever, right? Sometimes the parents of those children or students, you know, sometimes they get very upset. And so, you know, you don't hear about it very often, but at the end of the day, you know, it could be, not like you said, not someone with just a firearm,
right?
Someone that is upset because Johnny got a D on a paper and he can't get to college. I don't have kids, but I can only imagine the psychological mind that, like, my child is going for a scholarship or going for something like this, and there's someone that is standing in the way of, you know, can't you just do this for me? Right? And so that's what you have to train for, right? Of
course. And you know, initially, you know, my first response is, you know, you mentioned response times and how long it takes us to get there. That's scrutinized, right? And it should be. Every time one of these major incidents take place, there's a major review and an in-depth investigation as to how the response took place and the good things, the bad things, what we can work on. And they're comprehensive reviews of the entire response. And we tell our officers, in a perfect world, well, in a perfect world, this would never happen, right? But in a perfect world, if it does, we would be on the campus. We want to be there when this happens, because that's how we're built. That's how our mind is. It has to be that way. And what I mean by that is, I don't want to be 3 minutes away when it happens. I want to be in the parking lot when someone makes the decision to enter the school. I want to be seconds away, right? So that would be, you know, ideal for us. And the reality is, it is going to take a minute or two to get there. And the way that we enter and the tactics that we use and train multiple times a year, that's what drives home the importance of how we get in that building and how we address the threat immediately, without waiting. There's no interruption. And you mentioned parents, you know, coming onto campus and in their mind sticking up for their student or their child.
Yeah.
And we've seen a rise in that. And the chief talks about that lately. And he's right on with it. You know, we have seen a rise with parents entering our campuses because of their children or their child being involved in a fight or getting, you know, school discipline or something like that. And it's not uncommon for the parents to cause somewhat of a disruption on the campus. And when I mentioned that block training and the whole week of training that is split up over 7 blocks, that goes into it as well. We remind the officers of handling students, parents, and disruptions on campus, and human trafficking and narcotics and evidence packaging and everything that they do day to day. They get those reminders in that training over the summer. And we've been very successful in handling upset parents on our campuses. Sometimes it results in criminal charges. Sometimes it results in a trespass. Sometimes it just results in a warning and calming them down and de-escalating that situation. But we have seen a rise in parents attempting to come on campus pretty upset.
Yeah. And you know, when it comes to what we're discussing, you know what I mean? Like, all these things, again, fall upon you. And so you have to ensure that the people that are working underneath you follow the same guidelines and the same diligence that you follow. And so, you know, I come to the fact of, you know, in your position, right? You know, we talk about children. How many children are in the school district police? A couple 100,000 or something?
About 300.
300,000. I mean, you know, I say in my world, you know, you need one person that's crazy to come into the door to cause a disturbance in my store. You need one. You know what I mean? When and you know, when you have all these different factions here, and all those different students have aunts or uncles or grandparents or, you know, like all these different things that you have to worry about. And so when it comes to the summer months and the children are not there, you're not just off on vacation for the next 3 months. Mm-hmm. You're ensuring of all of these things, as well as you're preparing for the next school year, because 3 months is not that short of a time, you know, for the kids, for a majority of the children to be off.
Right. Right, and actually, it's even less than that for about 100 of our officers, since we're 11 months, since the campus officers or the officers not assigned to patrol assignments during the school year are 11 months. So they'll get off the last week of June and come back to work the last week of July. So right now, about 100 of our officers are off. That's unique. So we have a small window, or Lieutenant Hewitt has a small window to train. Yeah, it's great that they get that break. Kind of, you know, makes them, you know, excited for the next year, things like that. And that's our job. You know, we focus on the good things that we accomplish throughout the school year, the things that we need to work on, and then just reminding them of their mindset. And that's big for us, mindset. And we meet throughout the year, maybe once or twice a month, with the entire department virtually, and we talk to them about mindset, about being being prepared, being ready, and then being safe. Honestly, that's kind of like the motto, because when the emergency happens, it's too late to prepare. So we have to do all of that throughout the summer, get the mindset right, so if it does happen in our schools, they're ready and they go and attack. And that's the goal, because it's the reality, unfortunately. And also reminding them of the past. You know, Columbine started all of this. You know, the school shooting in Columbine. You know, that's when the nation developed, and that's when we developed our active assailant training, and we've been training it ever since. Every single year, every single officer who puts on a uniform attends active assailant training. And we involve our other agencies with it. Over time, it's changed and modified based on the tragedies that have happened, just not here in the United States, but also across, you know,
Everywhere. The
everywhere.
World. Yeah,
Mumbai changed a lot. You know, the coordinated attacks on a city that led to us just not focusing all of the resources just on one incident happening, but also keeping some folks at bay just to ensure that if something else did happen, we could attack that as well. So Mumbai did change a lot of that. All of them do. They're all learning experiences for public safety officials to evaluate what had happened and then challenge what we're training to see if that's going to be sufficient enough to attack that threat. Sandy Hook, Stoneman Douglas, and then obviously Uvalde. It just happened a couple years ago. And how quick is the community just to kind of like, okay, let's go back to normal. Everybody wants to go back to normal. Get that thing out of their head that 19 people died when that shooter came into the Uvalde and killed all of those students and those 2 teachers. And yeah, that was a huge failure on the part of law enforcement. And our response to that was basically, well, that's not how we train. That's not how we respond. And I guess a testament to that for Las Vegas is the amount of first responders that responded to the UNLV shooting. We had 70 plus officers that responded to that. And mind you, we're a 200 person department. So just about half of our folks responded and assisted during the UNLV first minutes of that incident happening. And just there was hundreds of officers from every agency that came. And so just that's a testament to the mindset of the folks that work here in public safety that put their uniform on, their badge and their gun, and they go out there and protect the citizens. They're not going to hesitate. They're not going to stand behind a door and wait. They're going to go in there and attack and make sure that lives aren't lost based on hesitance. The whole training is based on the fact that we will not hesitate. We will go in there. We will attack, and we will neutralize whatever threat that's in there. That's the whole goal of the training. And it seems, it just seems odd from a school district police department that has this soft touch and this soft approach to the things that are happening with our kids in our schools, but this is completely different. This is someone set on taking the lives of people, and which is completely different than a lot of what we deal with on every single day, but we have to train that, and we have to make sure that our officers know it's a reality and it could happen at any given moment of the day. And they have to be ready. They have to be prepared, and they have to have their mind right and ensure that they're going to go in there and make sure that they do whatever they can to eliminate that threat. Some good things have come out of preparation-wise. We had a great idea, and I was talking to somebody who retired from our department. He used to work in a prison, and they have these SRT teams that come in and they remove prisoners from so I thought about the conversation, and Lieutenant Hewitt mentioned our breach and rescue team, and we didn't have a name for it or anything like that. But after Uvalde and just some of the other incidents that had happened, because we do track a lot of the school shootings that happened throughout the country, and there's a number of them that happened last school year. The breaching was a concern, that how do we overcome the breaching of a door? Well, that's where we have specially trained officers. I think there's 17, somewhere around that neighborhood, who are equipped with tools to actually breach doors. All of our officers actually receive training in breaching doors, and all of them receive the breaching tools. But we do have specially trained officers that actually will come in. They're placed throughout the valley here, and they'll respond as well. They have the equipment to basically get in anywhere they can, and they also have mass casualty medical equipment as well, and the training to back it up. So they'll bring in backpacks of tourniquets and bandages and things like that to ensure that because medical is going to take a minute for them to actually be able to be escorted in there. So our officers are now trained to actually provide that assistance immediately to save lives. So I think I always need more officers, and that would help, but for what we have, we're doing a good job. I believe we're prepared. And I go to conferences and training seminars and things like that all the time. And there's one thing that they always say is that you're either a school district that's coming out of an active shooter or one that's going in. So your mind should be in that, thinking about that, because and learn from those that have gone through it, So I meet once a month with chiefs of police of school districts throughout the country. Once a month we meet and we talk about problems, things like that, and they share their experiences with their active shooters on their campuses. A good one was the shooting that occurred in Atlanta, Georgia, with a good friend of mine, Ron Applin. He's the chief of police over there, and it happened on Valentine's Day. Did you hear about that?
No.
No, you don't hear about a lot of the shootings that happen throughout the country, and four students were shot right after school. Now, they have alarms on every single door throughout the day, so, and then they have weapon detection systems. And the student was inside their school all day with a firearm. So, you know, and we answer a lot of questions about that, about weapon detection systems and adding all this layered approach to security. You know, we can add everything we could possibly can, but there's that human element is always going to be there, and it's difficult to overcome someone set on doing harm, you know. And his response, his officers saved lives, things like that. They're heroes, and they were able to arrest and prosecute the assailant for that. And it's just things like that we hear about all the time, or I do, and I put it out to our department, and I ensure that, you know, Lieutenant Hewitt is aware and of each and every one, so he can evaluate the specific things that occurred during that shooting incident and challenge what we're doing as a department in our response, and what do we need to do to improve that, to overcome what just happened somewhere else. So, and that is a big fear every single school day. You know, it's such a relief, honestly, when school ends. It's kind of like in the last chief, Ketso, when I was talking to him, he thought the same thing. You know, okay, we made it through another year. You know, what's going to happen this year? Are we going to? And we have a big department meeting prior to, like a kickoff prior to the school year starting, and we'll be talking about, you know, preparation, readiness, and safety, and the reality of our jobs, that we just don't know when it's going to happen, where it's going to happen, and how it's going to happen. But we better be prepared. We better be ready, and we're going to respond and take care of that threat. And thank God it didn't happen this school year. We've had some incidents, obviously, but nothing to that level, because I think something like that happening here in Las Vegas or any other community is going to impact it dramatically, you know, because we're just not dealing with the folks that live on our campuses, because they don't. They go home. They go to their parents.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Of
They're
course.
all over town. Everybody has children, and they attend our schools, and it could happen anywhere. It'll be completely impactful to this entire community if we had something like that occur. So it's our job to ensure that we're ready, and not just us. Every other agency, you know, Chief Gravatt, Chief Chadwick, Sheriff Potts, all the chiefs here in town have the same mindset. They have to be ready and prepared for it, and they ensure that their officers are trained just like us. And that's what the MACTAC cadre is about. Every agency sends their officers to be trained in these tactics, and so when they go and they train their department, everybody's trained the same.
Yeah.
So when we had the UNLV incident, it was our officers, it was a Metro officer, it was a UNLV police officer, you know, it could have a marshal, teamed up together, trained the same, applying the same tactics to address the threat. And that's what we do here in Las Vegas. And I'm pretty sure most agencies or most cities have that same approach. But it's what works here.
Yeah, and that gets us to, you know, again, preparedness, right? Like, we hope that it should never happen. We hope that we never want to use your mind in the way that you know and how to do things and get into a door and walk around the hallway. We hope that we never have to do it. And we want to tell everyone, listen, that you are prepared. Don't try this. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't the place to do it. On top of which, you know, it's not like pulling a fire alarm. Okay? It is a very serious matter. And so when you call out the people, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a very big problem. And there can be one person or a classroom of people that are in a threat. I mean, you know, down to a whole school. I mean, who knows what happens in today's world, right? And so you have to be prepared. And so one of the coolest things is, like you said in the beginning, which was, you may think that we're just out in the parking lot just hanging out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But in actuality, that's not what we're doing. We are looking because we have been trained. And because we have been trained, we know exactly what we're supposed to do in the event that there is this threat. And
Right.
and again, we hope that it should never happen. Right?
Absolutely.
But the thing is that there has to be, just like he said, there's a correct way to breach a door, and there's a wrong way to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's a right way to walk down the hallway, and there's a wrong way. And so if 6 different people are all doing it in a different way, it's not good. And that comes from who you are and your training, that you're training others. And that's what makes it so important.
I appreciate that. You know, the chief mentioned the breach and rescue team and breaching doors and saving lives. And by no means will we ever, no agency in the Valley is ever going to downplay a SWAT response, right? So let me talk about that real quick. Obviously, SWAT's coming. We need them. They are the experts. And we would never downplay their response. But what do we do while they're responding if if a suspect decides to barricade themselves? We do not and we will not treat them as a barricaded subject in a situation like this. They have that warrior mindset, and they have made the decision to take lives. So in the event that they physically were to barricade, we would not treat that like a barricade situation, meaning we're not going to set up on the room and wait for SWAT. We're going in. So what do we do while the experts are en route? There was a gap there, right? And we filled that gap with our breach and rescue team to bring that equipment, and we're going in that door. SWAT could be 5 minutes away, but that's a long time in an incident like this. And we're not treating that person like a traditional barricaded subject. Like if, for example, if there was an incident in a neighborhood at a residence, and the person decided to retreat back into his home with a weapon or something like that. Commonly, those people are treated as a barricaded subject, and there's a certain way to respond and handle that situation. We will refuse to handle that situation that way in a school. If you made the decision to harm our children, we don't allow you to barricade. So we're going in. And that's what the breach and rescue team does. That's what every officer will do and attempt to do. It's just that the breach and rescue team has some extra equipment. So we will breach that door, we'll handle business on the other side of the door, and then immediately transition to saving lives while we wait for paramedics and the firefighters to come in.
Very confident you are.
Yeah.
Like you can see it in your face. You know, normally when I come on the TV, you know, you said we met before, but like what I will tell you is that I always talk on the TV and I say, you know, because if people believe, and I believe people do, that you can feel through the television, right? Like if you're watching, you know, like you can feel like if someone's very soft spoken and like, you know, they're just, but you can see, it's not that you're soft spoken, but you can see it in your face that like, which is what people need to see, that there is someone that if there is a problem, you need to have someone that has that confidence. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, listen, we will do this. You know, and so it's very important because I believe that these type of activities lead to someone not doing that because they're looking and they're like, okay, listen, the response is, you know, we're going to take 30 minutes and we're going to, you know, try to call you on your cell phone and, you know what I mean? And hope that, you know, you're going to drink some water or something and, you know what I mean? But in a situation where what you have been trained for, right? Sort of the direct opposite of the social working end. Like,
Right.
you know, it's not that we're not the nice people, but like the time of being nice is now over because you've elected to harm, like you said, our staff or our children. Right. And so it's very important. You know, people need to know, and people do know, that when they send their children to the Clark County School District Police or any school district, that there are people there that are ensuring that your children are safe.
Absolutely, and that confidence is within our whole department, right? That our officers are ready, and I can speak for other agencies, our partner agencies as well. You know, the 3 major agencies in town: the Henderson, North Las Vegas, and Metro, of course, but all the other agencies, you know, 30 plus in this town, that are protecting their portion of the community every day. They're all trained for it, and that they all have that confidence.
Yeah. And so, Chief, I mean, you know, we know you have the confidence. You know what I'm saying? But that again leads to the fact that your officers are training and are trained to ensure that your staff, right, the staff of the school district, right, the children, you know, the substitute teacher, that it's their first day ever coming to class, right? You know, like, I'm scared to bring in my briefcase because I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I just got out of teaching school. You know what I mean? But, like, you need to ensure, because at the end of the day, the teachers are so important. And you know, we talk about the fact of, you know, the children and the young adults that are under your care for, 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, you know what I mean? Depending, even if they do sports and extracurricular activities, you know, that they need to be safe. And so what I come to is that it's very, very important that the children feel safe so that they can go home and they can say to their parents, look, I just wanted to tell you, you know, like, it was great today, you know what I mean? You know, math was great, and you know, I got an A, and you know, went to lunch and then went home. And so, you know, this is the type of thing that we all look for, because no one wants any problems, and we all know that maybe not as tenseful from an active assailant situation, right? But people butt heads all day long. You know what I mean? Just by being normal, people. And so we have to have people underneath you that know how to do these things and know how to de-escalate situations so that we can have less problems throughout the year, right?
Right, and that whole feeling of safety, it's hard to gauge, you know. But the district does a good job. I think they're state mandated to actually have a there is a statewide survey of safety in our schools. So each level of school, elementary, middle, and high, they're surveyed each year. Do you know that?
No,
They're surveyed how they feel about the school being safe. And the district does very well on that. I think around, you would think it'd be higher, but it's around 80 percentile that their feeling of safety in our schools. In some cases, a little lower. Elementary school, for instance, I believe it's a little lower. I think that's based on the fact that parents' influence of the student. Because the schools are the safest places, and we do have layered approaches to safety. You know, controlling the classroom is huge. You know, our teachers they're up there teaching. It's difficult when the kids are allowed to have their phones right there in their faces. I don't know if you've seen a recent decision in California to ban phones in California. That just recently came out. So we'll see how that's going to go this coming school year. Our school district.
I thought about that. The kids have the phones.
Yeah. Yeah. So our school district, what we're doing this year is we're implementing the cell phone bags. So students are going to be issued cell phone bags to put their cell phones in the bag during the instructional time throughout the day. So to limit the classroom disruptions in the classroom. And so teachers can actually teach and not have to continually manage that issue in the classroom. So we'll see how that's going to go. I mean, it's good and bad. Folks want to be able to contact their child, and we get that. But you know, they're there for a purpose. It's not to talk to their parents. It's not to talk to their friends, check their social media posts and things like that. It's actually learn. So, and how can you do that when you're discussing with mom that, you know, hey, go over to your aunt's house after school today and things like that? I mean, you can do that, but there's times and places to do it, and it's not inside a classroom. So that's one approach that's going to be happening this year. Also, there's been discussions about weapon detection systems, and that came out I think JARA started that, I believe, around the start of this year, around January or so, and it's going forward. So the district's now going to be replacing or updating our old walk-through metal detectors. You used to go to the airport or some other places a long time ago. Was that standard? It beeps when you go through. So now we're updating those to new technology, and just for our sporting events, because we've always had metal detection in schools. It's just we've never had the single point of entry where folks could walk through a single point and we're checked. We do that for football games and high-level sporting activities where a lot of folks are going to be coming. Mainly because of the dangers at those events. Did you know that it's more probable that a school shooting is going to occur at an extracurricular activity than actually inside the schoolhouse? Yeah, it happens outside the school, the brick and mortar buildings, most of the time. At the start of the day and all that. So, and after hours. So those are the times that, and whoever thought of it years and years ago, and 20 years ago, possibly, we've been having these when I started, it was 21 years ago we've had them. So they've always been implemented in our sporting events. So we're gonna put the new technology at our sporting events and give the principals an opportunity to decide and come up with some plans that have to be approved to implement those and at their single point of entries. So students walking in at the start of the day will be checked. We'll see how that actually goes. Obviously, it's going to depend on vendors and things like that because it'll take a while to get those metal detectors.
But the thing is, though, it's not like, and I come back to like 1985, you know what I mean? Where the guy got upset with you and, he came over, he punched you in the nose, you know what I'm saying? And,
right.
and that was the end of the game, you know what I mean? Maybe by the next afternoon you were friends again.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, in today's world, there are a lot of things that children can get their hands on that they can hurt people. Just like we talked about, it doesn't have to be a firearm, right? A guy could have a simple pocket knife, right? And that pocket knife can do a lot of damage.
Absolutely. Stabbings, school stabbings are high, I don't know the numbers from this past school year, but the year prior to that, there were deaths in not on our district, but in other districts of stabbings inside a school. Just students having knives. That's why JARA was big on preventing any type of weapon this past school year. So, consequences that came along with carrying a knife and bringing it to school, So it's all a layered approach, just stacking those things on top of each other to ensure that, there's obstacles in front of somebody who wants to come and do harm inside the school. That you have to have that. No one device or initiative's going to fix everything. It has to be a layered approach, and that's what you'll see with every school district in this country is that they may have this, we don't have that, that type of stuff. But we have this and they don't have that. There's no one ingredient that's going to solve everybody's problems for school safety. It's just it's that layered approach. Staff, we have awesome staff, and they have relationships with kids, and the kids will tell them. That's safety right there. That's an approach. That one responsible adult that child has a relationship with, that they come and tell them, hey, I think I saw a little Johnny with a firearm or with a knife, things like that. And that's how we get a lot of our recoveries is just from those types of things. It could be a police officer. When I was in my campus, it would have been probably me that they came up, hey, Officer Black Guy, there's somebody with a knife over there or a gun or they have drugs or this, that, and the other. And you get those types of reports all day long from kids, and teachers are getting them. All the staff are getting those types of things. So it's everybody's kind of responsibility. That's why that see something, say something is so important. Seems cliche because it's been so long now that it's been going on, but it's actually very important. It's only a few people actually do it. If everybody actually reported something that they saw that they thought was wrong, there wouldn't be that many problems.
Yeah, there really wouldn't be. That it's the truth though, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in your business, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? We only have a couple minutes left. I just want to talk about something that's very important. Okay, Juan was here. You gave me a little plaque here.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and so one of the things that I want to talk about before we leave that is really important that you do, and before we went on air, Juan was like, listen, we have all these instructors now from the you know, okay, you are doing the lead, which is law enforcement against drugs. And you are setting an example for the entire country. Not just, not to say not the state of Nevada, like it'd be fantastic. No, you're doing something that the entire country does not have. So I want to talk just a moment. Talk to us about the lead.
So I was at a Chiefs and Sheriffs conference, and they had vendors. And I don't know if you were with me or not, but I go walking out, and there's vendors out there. They have little trinkets or whatever. They talk about their product. My thought was I was the chief, and I was thinking, okay, well, we need some type of educational program in our schools because when I started, we didn't have it. And I thought that was, along with the social workers, I thought that would be very helpful. And I come to this banner. There's a little tiger there. I don't know what that means. I still don't know what the tiger means, but it was LEAD, Law Enforcement Against Drugs. And it says "end violence" on it. So I talked to them for a little bit and invited them over to the department. They did a presentation for us, and I really liked it. I liked the fact that it wasn't based on funding. That it required a huge amount of funding to actually get it started, and it took a lot of effort on our part to get the personnel involved. So we brought in Sergeant Wilbowo and Captain Mayer, who I think
Yes.
well, who wanted to head up the project. And now that happened, I think, 3 years ago. And now we have more instructors in LEAD than any other jurisdiction in the country. So
Than any other jurisdiction.
Yes, we have 33 instructors. That's more than anybody else that instructs LEAD. So I'm very proud of that.
Yes.
We do it quietly. I don't tout a lot of the stuff that we do. I don't think the district does that much, but that's a really good educational program. It teaches relationships. It teaches how to recognize dangers, things like that. Just responsible decision making, which is probably the biggest thing, against drugs and violence. How to add, Lieutenant Hugh was talking about our parents, kind of getting upset and they don't know how to advocate. They don't know how to advocate properly for their child. So they'll come and they'll express anger and sometimes violence with our staff. That's why the numbers are going up. So we're trying to teach our kids that here's good ways to actually advocate for yourself, how to solve problems without resorting to screaming, yelling, cussing, or fighting. And it's just started. So 33 instructors. We're trying to get it to every single middle school, and with only 200 officers, it's difficult. But 33 is a good start, and we'll hit at least hopefully half of them. And we'll see how it goes. It's a 10-week program. Our officers in the classroom an hour a day, 1 day a week for 10 weeks. And you don't think that's for adults. You think, oh, that's not that very impactful, But for children, that's huge. It's very impactful. There's graduations that happen. After the 10-week program's up, they'll have a graduation, and Juan's involved, and you've assisted and you've helped out with that.
We give them the gift card.
Yeah, we can't thank you enough.
Yeah,
it's just great. And the kids are so happy, and they're learning something from a police officer. When you and I were growing up, we had DARE or GREAT, those types of things, and now we have LEAD here in Las Vegas, and it's going well. And hopefully in the next 5 years, it's going to be throughout every single middle school and some of the high schools, because they have programs for high school students as well. So that's just a small little token of our appreciation for the help you've given us. Because like I said, it's something that we're doing on our own as a department. Really not much funding from the district or the community for it. It's something that our officers are excited about. They're dedicated in doing it, and they know that it's going to benefit our kids as they grow up, to be able to model good behaviors and solve their problems without violence in the future, and be able to recognize dangers like drugs and things like that. So
I thought it was amazing. He says to me, when we were talking before we went on the air, he said, one of the coolest things? I said, what's that? He said, week 1, everybody comes in, they sit in their desk, you know, and the officer's up there and he's talking and everybody's just quiet, right? He says by week 5, right? He says people are a little bit more looser. He says maybe the person that would never talk to, maybe this person is in this clique and this person is in this clique and they would never talk. But because they're in this classroom, right, they're talking, right? And then he says by week 7, 8, they're high-fiving each other. And by week 10, they're hugging the officer when they're leaving,
Yeah.
right? And so I said to him, I said, listen, we have serious problems. We have people that drive impaired, people that are doing wrong way driving, you know, people that are doing all these type of activities. And so we need to ensure that people at a young age know these things, right? And so just in what you do, and we only have a couple minutes left, but I just want to stress the fact that, like, we hope we never use your services. You know what I'm saying? Like, the world would be great if we never used your service,
Yeah.
right? But that comes from the children who are learning these things, who maybe will go home and talk to the parents and all of these things. So when they're walking by you in the morning, they're just able to wave. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so it's very, very important. So give me some final thoughts before we end.
Yeah, final thought on that and the topic of lead. And Sergeant Lebeau does a great job with that program with, you know, a couple of the members of our command staff. And I think the program speaks directly to our motto, prevention before apprehension. So that's on our patrol cars. And, you know, prevention before apprehension is just what it is. We try to prevent before we have to apprehend based on actions that people commit. And if we're getting to them in middle school and kind of training and educating these students, preventing potential crimes later, then we or our partner agencies might not have to apprehend them, because that's a reality of what could happen if you commit crimes, right? And they learn that. So when they learn these coping mechanisms and how to communicate and how to deal with the dangers of drugs and violence and stay away from that stuff, really we're preventing before a potential apprehension. And I think that speaks to our motto and the program that they run, and it's just a good thing. So not only am I in charge of you know, training officers on a medium-sized agency, our department is also deep into training our students and how to behave and how to watch for dangers of drugs and violence and all that stuff. So a lot of training.
A lot of
even for our
and
students.
it was amazing. He showed me pictures very quickly, but he showed me pictures, right? And he says, this is what your brain looks like, and this is what your brain looks like when it has alcohol, right? This is what your brain looks like. This is what your brain looks like on marijuana, right? And then the third thing he showed me is the goal for the goals, you know, that people have to set. And it was like, these are really positive things. And if we can get more people that are doing these positive things, then we're really setting people up for success later on in their life, which is what we're here for. You know what I mean? Chief, final thoughts?
Just thank you for having us come on to share what's going on in the district and with our department, and programs like LEAD. I know you help support that, and I think it's important to, you know, because we don't often get a chance to talk about our department in a positive light and what we're doing. It seems like we're just responding to some type of tragedy or some incident that occurred. And every single member of the department cares deeply about this community, about the kids in the schools, our staff, and they'll do anything to help them. And I think that's what's going to come out of this. And systems like the LEAD program, our social workers, just a lot of the things that we do that traditional police agencies don't, I think it needs to be known. And we haven't done a good job over the past, I think, 35 years in doing that. And thank you for giving us this opportunity to start that.
Yeah, of course. You know what I mean? Listen, we air it on Channel 13. You know, they're a tremendous partner of mine. And when we told them about the School Police Talk, they said, no problem. Like, we would love to have that, because they want the same to put you in the positive light. And, you know, it's sometimes in the light of tragedy, you know, that's not happening.
Right.
And so that's what's so important about doing the School Police Talk. And so that's why I'm so excited that, that you know, you come on and that you allow us the opportunity to come on and bring different people. And, you know, Brian's over there, but,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But I do. I appreciate it because I want people to know that the Clark County School District Police, I have a lot of friends that are police officers on there, that they're a fantastic agency. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
So, yeah, it's great. So one of the things that we didn't touch on, we talked about you, we talked about when it comes to people that are in your department that know what to do.
Of course.
Okay. One of the things that I would like to touch on is the fact of the staff that works at the schools, nothing to do with the police department,
Right.
the teachers and things like this. Are they part of the training so that, you know, if something was to ever happen, they have, and I don't want to know what they are, but they have
Right.
signals, or they know what's going on, or things of this nature?
Yeah, I can speak to that. You know, there are a couple things that the staff members, there's a lot of things that they can do, and there's a lot of ways they can get a hold of us, and they know that. And there's a couple that we shouldn't necessarily tell everybody about, and that's, you know, that's in house, and that's important to them. That's their way of getting a hold of us and their administrators in the building and the police department at the same time, and that would prompt an immediate response, right? But there's other ways. There's always going to be the 911, the traditional ways of contacting police in general, right? And then there's ways within their classroom, on their phones, and buttons on walls, and a bunch of different things separate from what I initially mentioned, which is a very big step the district took and that's proven successful. But with the training, our emergency management, the district's emergency management, is tasked this summer with training all staff members in the new standard response protocol, which are the buzzwords that you'll hear over the intercom system and over the radios inside of the schools, to either shelter in place or lock down or hold secure somewhere or just hold in your classrooms. There's different things that the staff members know of when they hear this stuff over the radio that will prompt their response and what to do with the students as well, whether it be get in the classroom and hide or just stay in the classroom and close the door, based, you know, case by case, and what the potential threat could be. Is the threat outside the school or is it inside the school, which would prompt a different buzzword over the intercom in those radios, right? And then radio holders within the school, certain radio holders within the school actually have a radio that can communicate with our dispatch at our station immediately. They switch over to a certain channel and they can talk to one of our dispatchers and report a threat immediately, just like I can with my radio right now. We implemented that a few years ago, and that's proven successful as well. So they do receive the training. There is the standard training that they'll get every year, and it really relies on their alertness, right, their readiness as well, to pick up on what's going on and then react the proper way based on what the threat might be.
Just to add to that, that's
I
the
wanna
important part too. That yearly training that they get. You know, they also have drills that they're required to do by law that help build on that and remind them throughout the year. Trainings for evacuation. You know, the standard fire alarm. You know, how to evacuate. The self-evacuation. If they're outside and the threat's inside, then they can self-evacuate somewhere. How to lock down properly. You know, we've heard these terms, lockdown, shelter in place, things like that, sealing the doors for shelter in place, vents, things like that, or just where student placement is when they're locking down inside the classroom. And that includes also the staff administrators and the campus security monitors and just the staff at the school. They need to know what doors they're responsible for, what hallways they're responsible for, the lock and check, things like that. And that kind of goes along with, as Lieutenant Hugh was talking about, our emergency management folks, the training that happens the summer right before school starts. Every school has a crisis plan, emergency response plan for the site. It's called a site-based emergency response plan to respond to incidents throughout the year. A detailed plan, where they're going to go if they have to evacuate the site, what they're going to do in this case, that case, those things. I can't specifically talk about those incidents, but yeah, some of that's driven a lot by the principal and the APs to actually ensure that they're school responds appropriately to emergencies. And that's where we are trained to actually know exactly what they're doing in this case or that case, so we can work within that whole effort to actually respond appropriately to the incident at hand. So yeah, they get training every single year, and it's kind of rehearsed or just practiced throughout the year too with the drills that are happening. There's lockdown drills that happen throughout the year that they have to actually do along with the fire drills. So yeah, it's kind of like practice throughout the year. In the past, you used to hear that teachers would say, well, I have never received any, active shooter training. Well, we don't call it that. It's not called that in the actual training. So maybe it was, and I think we've gotten a little bit better throughout the years to actually let them know, well, you have, and here's what it is. And, because we're not teaching folks to fight and things like that and carry weapons and address the threat. That's what law enforcement, public safety are doing. But yeah, we will be going to a new system this coming school year. It's out of Florida. It's called I Love You Guys. And it's a standard response protocol changes in the terminology that we're using with the staff to actually ensure that they, like he said, lockdown, shelter in place, hold, things like that.
It's not. It's not like the old days when somebody pulled the fire alarm and you just had to go out into where the buses were, and you just had to line up in a line and say, "Okay, 1, 2, please say your name." Bob Smith.
They do the same thing, and they practice that.
Okay, because that's all. That's all I remember growing up. You know what I mean?
I remember the same thing.
We didn't do any of that this other type of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But what I do remember is, not that anyone pulled the fire. I don't even remember if anybody pulled the fire alarm, but I'm sure somebody did. But we would do the fire drills. And they would get on the thing and they would say, the fire drill is going to be in 10 minutes, right? And so you go, okay, and then, the thing would ring, and then everybody would have to go out into the where they put the buses were, and each class or whatever it was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And each teacher had the booklet, and they used to go down and go, okay, Bob Smith, okay, here, you know what I mean? And so
same concept, just a little more advanced now.
Just a little
Yeah.
bit more.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you coming in. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really important that people need to know that everybody is safe. And so the more that we do the school police talk, right, is the more that we keep telling people of the levels of safety that the Clark County School District Police has. So it's fantastic. I thank you for coming in.
Yep, thanks
I
for having
thank
us.
you for coming in. You know what I mean?
No, thank you, Lou.
All right, so now we're going to look at this camera and we're going to wave goodbye. All right, we'll see you later.